Hi, I'm Brandon Poe, founder of Poe Group Advisors and creator of the Accounting Practice Academy. You are listening to the Accountant's Flight Plan podcast, where we talk about stuff in the accounting world. If you're looking to buy or sell a practice, we are the premier accounting practice intermediary firm in the industry. Check us out at pogroupadvisors.com. If you're a firm owner looking to build a more profitable practice while actually reducing owner hours, sign up for our practice management workshop, which only runs a few times per year. Learn more at accountingpracticeacademy.com. All right, welcome to Accountant's Flight Plan podcast. I'm really excited today. I've got a guest. I've been kind of following Bill Cates a little while on his blog, and it's a pleasure to speak with you on the podcast today. Bill is widely recognized as one of the foremost experts in the art and science of acquiring new clients through referrals and personal introductions. He's president of Referral Coach International and the founder of the Cates Academy for Relationship Marketing. He's also a best-selling author. His third and latest book, Beyond Referrals, lays out the steps to converting referrals to what he calls engaged introductions and ultimately new clients. Welcome, Bill.
Hey, thank you. And in just case they misheard you, it's not Bill Gates. Gates with a C. Here's what I like to say, Brandon, is Bill Gates has a lot of money, and that's great. Good for him. I'm going to help you make more money by serving more people and multiplying your best clients.
Love that. Love that. Well, I want to take on an issue head on because we talked about this before the show, and the accounting industry right now has a lot of issues with staffing. There's not enough CPAs to go around. So a lot of the listeners are probably bumping on capacity constraints. And, some of the people that I speak with, they're like, new clients, like we're turning people away. Why would we want to try to get new clients? And you mentioned something that these tactics, maybe for lack of a better word, these strategies, are also effective in getting new staff. So you want to talk just a little bit about that?
Yeah. So everything we're going to talk about here is more of let's call it a quality play. It's an emphasis on quality. I know when you're feeling overwhelmed, when you're feeling at capacity, it's hard to think about bringing on new clients. And yet I rarely meet a firm that wouldn't be willing to somehow accommodate another, ideal client. And so that's what we're going to focus on here. And then in terms of staffing, the way I think about it, kind of the principle upon which I operate is, what is the warmest way? Who do we know that can help us get to where we want to go, right? So whether it's growing the business or whether it's finding employees, more accountants, more support staff, who do we know that can help? And so therefore, the referral, the introduction process that we're going to discuss relates to that. And I suspect that some folks listening are doing a pretty good job with talking to the current team. Who do you know working at other firms? Who do you know graduating, getting their accreditation, et cetera? I know there's a lot of competition from the big boys, so to speak. But not everybody, that's not perfect for everybody. Another thing in that, real quick, is when you're talking to your team, your other accountants, your other team members, making sure they know how to describe the firm and the advantages of working at your firm and why someone should consider it. Could be the lifestyle you've created, could be the way you support people in other ways, whatever. But having that unique value proposition in terms of recruiting and making sure that everybody knows how to talk about where they work, and particularly the positive attributes of where they work, is very important. The firm needs to be referable to your clients, so they will introduce you to others if that's what you want. But it also needs to be referable in terms of your current employees, staff, talking about you to others out there. Yeah. So a couple of different concepts mixed in there, but it definitely fits anywhere you want to go. Who do you know is going to help me get there, right?
Yeah, and I, as you're speaking, I'm thinking back of my own experience, and some of my best team members have come from people that have known me and said, "Oh, you're looking for this person. I've got this great person in mind. You need to talk to so and so." And those have been my best people. And also, as I'm thinking, it's like you touch on some firm culture issues, and that you've got to protect the culture of the firm and identify it, and so people can talk about it. So they're all great points.
Yeah, it just one more point around that. I mean, if you just from a sports metaphor, if you think of a coach who's, let's say they're an assistant coach, but they're going to be elevated to be a head coach, they already know who they want to bring, right? Or even in college, they're recruiting. They're recruiting 2-3 years down the road, even though there isn't a position available now. They're still recruiting. So we as business owners need to always be recruiting talent. And we may or may not have a position available for them, but when we meet people and get referred to them and comings and goings, we stay in touch with them. We don't wait for the need and then we scramble. We already have a few folks that might very well fit into that position, or
Yeah.
know some people who will fit into that position. So we're always, always, always recruiting.
Nice. All right. So let's get into some of the strategy.
Mhm.
And your book, Beyond Referrals, uh, goes further than just that. It goes beyond just getting the business in the door. Can you talk about that and why that's important?
Yeah. So the two books that I wrote before that, Get More Referrals Now and Don't Keep Me a Secret, was mostly dedicated to identifying and getting referred to people, right? How to ask clients for referrals to others and how to be more referred and all that important stuff. Still always very important, but the referral, if you will, is not really the full benefit, the full end game. We first of all, we know these days that it's just so hard to reach people that we want to get introduced to them in some way. We want to get connected. So not only do we want that willingness of people to talk about us to others, we want to make sure they're connecting, they're introducing us to others in a good, substantial way so that we can then get the appointment, be it on the phone, Zoom, in person, or some combination, and then eventually bring them on as a new client if it's a good match for everybody. So that's why I talk about beyond referrals. It's getting the willingness, being referable, asking, getting connected. And then we've got some strategies in there around getting the appointment and actually eventually bringing them on as a client. So that's why I call it beyond referrals. The end game isn't the referral. The end game is the new client if it's a good match.
Yeah, because you can get the word of mouth. You can get people talking about you and say, "Hey, you should call Bill Cates to help you get referrals." But
right.
Then it's kind of the onus is on that person, right?
Hey, can I tell you a quick story? Because I had that happen once in that. I work with a lot of financial professionals, accountants, planners, wealth managers, the whole gamut of financial. And I had a guy once with an insurance agency that put out a broadcast to all his agents, life insurance agents. Hey, if you want more referrals, call Bill Cates. Okay. So all of a sudden, all these fairly new insurance agents were calling on my company. So-and-so said, you have referrals for us. I said, no, I can teach you how to do it, but I don't have them for you specifically. So word of mouth is great, but it's not usually the right connection with the right people. We can't rely just on that.
Got it. And you've laid out in this book what you call the perpetual revenue system, and walk us through to help kind of, I think this will set up the rest of the conversation today.
Yeah. So, when people hear perpetual revenue, is that possible? And the answer is yes. And I've been helping people for 30 years do this. So the first thing is we need to be referable, and we'll talk about that. We need to be worthy of remarkable, worthy of remark. So in the eyes of our clients, in the eyes of other centers of influence out there in the world, same thing for the recruiting side. And then once we've become referable, we want to be proactive in certain ways. Now, without looking like the creepy referral guy, that's what people come to me. So, well, I don't want to look like an over-aggressive life insurance agent. I don't want to look like the cheesy, creepy referral guy. Is there a way to promote and ask? And yes, there is. And I can talk about that today. And then, as I've already mentioned, the connection, the introduction. How do we make sure we actually get connected? Because to me, referrals, if you will, are kind of worthless these days because it's just so hard to reach people that we got to think in terms of the connection. So once we get connected, and then we start to activate the principles of these engaged clients and becoming referable, it actually creates a perpetual flow where one leads to the next. Think about it in terms of pool. In pool, you have what they call the leave. You're hitting the cue ball to hit the 4 ball to the side pocket, but you want to leave that cue ball in position for the next shot. I believe that's how client acquisition or talent acquisition needs to run. We make the shot, we get the new client. That's great. That counts. But if we don't have a process to activate the next, then we get into wishing and hoping, which is not a good marketing strategy. So engagement, being more referable, leverage, being appropriately proactive, and then connection, getting introduced. And that's what drives the perpetual.
So it sounds like, if correct me if I'm misunderstanding, but it sounds like it's you've got to create habits for yourself, and it's a habit. It's like anything, you've got to learn these skills and then turn them into action on a regular basis.
Oh, without question. I mean, I've just finished listening to a podcast where James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, was talking. He talks about the results that we're experiencing in our life, any area of our life, is a lagging indicator of our habits. Makes sense, doesn't it? Right?
Yeah.
Because it's our habits that are creating where we are now, whatever that looks like in any part of our life. So it's all about habits. So, I mean, so one habit, a couple habits that we can get into is checking in with clients to make sure expectations are on match, on par. We call it a value discussion. We can get into that. Another thing, habit is promoting, or at least letting our clients know, or the right clients know, that we are open to taking on new clients that are a good match. And if you're at capacity, say, look, we only have so much capacity to serve our clients, and we want to make sure when we take on new clients, we do it in a way that isn't going to be detrimental to the service of the folks we already have. So therefore, we pretty much take clients on, by referral only, if you will. Our clients are thinking of others. They send them our way. We make sure it's a good match, so everyone gets served. So it's kind of like that appropriate proactivity around that needs to be a habit. Needs to be a habit of getting introduced, right? When you think, all right, someone's willing to talk about us with someone, all right, we're not done until we get introduced. So all kinds of series of habits. And sometimes those habits become a process which actually has a checklist, right? I'm sure that everyone listening has certain checklists. If you're doing a tax return, if you're doing an audit, if you're doing any accounting thing, there's probably a checklist of things you want to make sure you don't miss.
Right.
Those are habits, right? So yeah, we process everything we can in that regard, and we respect the process, and we don't deviate unless there's a really good reason.
Awesome. And what do you see as the results of this? It's interesting because there are certain, I've experienced this throughout my career in public practice. Mm-hmm. There's always certain firm partners that are just rainmakers. You got one partner is just he or she just can drive new business like nobody's business. And right. Tell me about results. Like, let's talk a little bit about, does this work, and what can people expect if they start doing this really, really well?
Yeah, the answer is I probably wouldn't be in business for 30 years doing this if it didn't work. I can't, you can fool some of the people some of the time, but yes, it does produce results. And let me give you a kind of an idea and address this rainmaker idea. Everyone in the firm plays a role in this idea of attracting more clients through referrals, introductions. So from a support staff level, whether you're serving a client directly or you're serving someone else who's serving a client directly, right, you have an impact on making the firm more referable. just to make sure things are done quickly, mistakes aren't made, processes are followed, all that great client service, great client experience, all of that, right? Everyone has a role. Some people have a role in being proactive. Now, a lot of folks can promote the possibility of introductions. They could say, hey, by the way, don't keep us a secret out there if someone's raving about you, or, hey, just so you know, we're never too busy to see if we can be a resource and be of help to other people, your other colleagues in your industry, if let's say if it's in a vertical market. So there's a lot of people can do that. And then there's the asking side of thing. And that's usually limited to the partners, and not always all the partners, because you're right. Some people, they would never do this, right? And they're not good at making introductions. They're not good at asking. It makes their skin crawl. All right, I get it. So, we can only step so far out of our comfort zone, and maybe you're not the person doing that. And you better have someone who can do it, though, whether it's the rainmaker partner or maybe a marketing assistant that works for the firm, but somehow there's someone who can put that level of proactivity out there to make sure that the right people are being asked. Now, we led off talking about being at capacity. So it's a quality issue. So maybe you don't ask everybody for the possibility of introductions. You only ask certain people within a vertical market you're pursuing, or at a certain level of business you're likely to do with them, right? They generate a certain amount of revenue and they have a certain number of employees, what makes them a sweet spot for the work that you do. Okay, you're asking those people, you're talking to those people about the possibility. So that's, you mentioned at the beginning, Brandon, the art and science, that's where these two things meet. There is some science to it in the sense that there's process that will produce results, but then there's also the nuance of matching it with the personalities and knowing the timing on certain things. Mm-hmm. And obviously some people are just more wired better than others around this. Results, gosh, I have seen help so many folks create great results. I'll give you one example that's actually outlined in my book, Radical Relevance, of a firm up in Canada. When I met them, they had about 100 clients, doing pretty well, but they wanted to scale. They wanted to scale with more team members, more staff, and they wanted to scale with more clients. And so we put the referral process in place for both of those. How does our staff help replicate and get more partners, if you will, or junior partners into the mix? And then how do we use the same principles? And so they are now at 1,000 clients. And they did that in 7 years. They went from 100 clients to 1,000 clients, and they elevated the level of client a little bit along the way. This is a firm in Canada, all across Canada. So yeah, I know it works. It's a matter of just implementation and habit.
Right. Implementation and habit. That's the key to any change. And one thing I want to mention too, you said everybody in the firm participates in this, and I can't agree more. Mm-hmm. And in fact, I think if your team knows that the goal is to provide service worthy of referral, that's what I always tell my team. Like, we've got to provide service worthy of referral. It elevates the service, which is like a foundational thing for this. You can't have referrals without good service.
No, you got to be referable. Look, they may like you, but if you're not referable, they're not going to, refer you to others, and may not even do business with you eventually. Or if they see your value, but don't like you, they won't work either. So there's actually a combination that I talk about engaged clients, and that's what we want to try to create, is this where a client feels engaged with your value. They like the work you do. They like your responsive service, those different things, the way you add some value to the relationship, continual education opportunities, or whatever you may do. I know a lot of accounting firms are bringing other services into play a little bit as another revenue stream. So, they appreciate that level of value, but we can't ignore and discount the personal connection, that they feel with their main contacts, whether it's receptionist, whether it's the main accountant on their account, whatever it is, there is that personal factor that has to be there. And we need to make sure that that's happening and happens over time. Some accounting firms are really good at staying in touch with clients and bringing value, and they got a newsletter and they have educational events and checking in with clients just to see how things are going on the personal side. And some are terrible. There's no plan in place. So you want to have a client engagement plan. You want to have a plan in place that dictates how often and for what reasons you will be in touch with your clients over the course of a year. Now, if it's a business client, you may be in touch with them naturally throughout the year because there's questions related to their business. If it's an employee, a tax time only kind of client, then you may not think of reasons to have interaction with them in between. But if you want to keep them, and if you want them to talk about you to others, to be remarkable, worthy of remark, then you have to have that client engagement plan in place.
Yeah. Well, I think about my accountant, and he's actually based in Rock Hill, South Carolina, which is a couple of hours away. And he came down to Charleston and invited me out to lunch and took me out to lunch, and that goes a long way.
Breaking bread with clients really does go a long way. Everybody knows this, right? What happens when you get together on that social side and you talk about things that have nothing to do with the business, or you talk about things tangential. I'll give you a very specific example. I was having lunch with my accountant, Eddie Snyder Cohn in Bethesda, Maryland, or Rockville, I guess, have been with me forever. I've trained his people. He's been my accountant forever. And we were having lunch once, and somewhere along the line, I said something about selling the business someday. And he said, "What kind of corp are you?" I said, "A C corp." "Oh, we got to get you changed." Right. So just that little thing that came out casually over lunch, moved me to a C corp, so I didn't get double taxed, and yada, yada, yada. And you know more about this than I do, but that's what happens, right? When we break bread, we hear other things about family, about, our goals in life. And sometimes you can just support your clients on a friendship level, a business friendship level. And sometimes there's actually things you can do professionally that you wouldn't known about doing if you hadn't had that conversation.
Yeah. And guess what? If you're the provider, you can benefit too. They might give you tips and things for your own benefit. It's
Absolutely.
a two-way street.
Absolutely. Yep. I've always talked to Eddie about, my area of expertise. He's brought me in to work with his team a number of times around this sort of thing. So yeah, one of my biggest things, if you will, is their interaction with our clients, and the secret sauce to creating advocates for us, not just people who will refer us or recommend us if it comes up, but who really kind of advocate for us, is what I call the business friendship. It's not like we're going out late at night telling each other deep, dark secrets. It's not that kind of friendship. It's the business friendship. And I think everyone listening knows what I mean by that. But that's really what now people will refer us, introduce us, because they see our value and they want others to experience the value, and they like us and they want to help us. And to get both of those dynamics going at the same time, that's what creates the advocates for our business.
Are you seeing any shift, because we've become a more virtual business world, a lot more Zooming, like we're on Zoom right now? Are people still doing lunches at the rate that they were, say, 5-10 years ago? Or do you feel like, are there some modern ways to do this that
Well, so at the rate, probably not. I don't have any measurement of that, but I think it's pretty obvious that some people aren't doing it like they used to. I mean, I know with my own financial advisor, for instance, I used to go in and visit him in his office 4 times a year. Now we do 2 of them on a Zoom. I mean, he's close by, but it saves us both a little time. So yeah, there's not as much of that, but all the more reason why we may want to think about putting that back in if we can. Not all clients are going to want it, but most will. And certainly if clients are coming into your office every now and then, have them come in near the lunch hour, so you can take them to lunch, or even go out to them if they're a big client. It makes a lot of sense to do that. So yeah, it's not happening as much, but think about it this way, right? Everyone always talks about writing a handwritten note, right? We never get handwritten notes anymore. So you'll stand out by writing a handwritten note, which is true. It's kind of the same thing. No one gets together in person anymore. Let's stand out by getting together in person a little bit more. One thing that a lot of firms do is client appreciation events, not just educational events, but appreciation events where clients are brought together just for the sake of saying thank you. And what happens is this, it's called consistency theory. When you get your clients who like you and trust you together with other clients who like you and trust you, the net result, of course, is everyone leaves liking you and trusting you more. Everything is bolstered and reinforced. So that's another tool over and above just the breaking bread over a lunch, is bringing clients together for that sort of thing. And look, some accountants, some of your folks listening are social by nature. They love doing this sort of thing. Others aren't. And it's a pretty big step out of the comfort zone. They'd rather not do the client appreciation event.
Yeah.
So find someone else in the firm that would like to do it, organize it, have them lead the whole thing. Yeah, you got to show up there and shake a few hands, but you don't have to do the whole thing if it's not your thing.
Right. Yeah, you got to, and I think with referrals, with asking, you've got to do it to way that suits your personality. We're in sales, and so I've got salespeople on my team, and everybody has their own style, their own way of saying things, their own personality, and that needs to come through. Can you talk a little bit about the ask?
Yes. So there's two ways to be proactive. Let's call it proactive. And I'll say there's the promoting, which most people can do. And then there is really truly the ask. So the promoting is letting clients know that you're never too busy to see if you can be a resource for others. My book, Don't Keep Me a Secret. That's a phrase that a lot of people like. It's kind of cute. Doesn't fit everybody. To say to a client, by the way, if you ever identify any of your colleagues in your industry or folks who, I don't know, they're complaining about their accounting firm, or just, you can just kind of tell they're not getting the service that you're used to getting, I'm not too busy to have a conversation with it. I like to offer that service to my clients to help others that they know. So just be aware of that. So that's the promoting side, right? It's great, has its place. That may be as far as you're willing to go. Let's talk about the ask. The ask is obviously where you're really asking, do you know anyone else who should know about what we do? But you never want to say it like that. The mistake that a lot of people make, and it usually does not produce a result, is to throw open the whole universe and say, can you think of anyone else who should be aware of our firm, or aware of the work we do, or aware of how we serve people? I suppose that's better than nothing. And lightning strikes occasionally, and they may think of someone, but usually it fizzles. And so then what happens is the feedback is, this doesn't work. I'm going to stop doing this, because it feels awkward when they can't think of anybody. The best way to ask, I call it the bullseye, is specific people they know. So over the course of getting to know your clients, and please be curious about your clients, are they active in their industry association or their professional society, right? If they are, then guess what? They know some people. Maybe they're even on the board of directors or formally on the board. And that way you can narrow the focus. And that's what we're trying to do in this ask here. So I could say to you, Brandon, I know that you're very active in your industry association. You're on the board. Just picture those folks for a second. Anybody there you think should be aware of us? Anybody that you think may very well even benefit from knowing that we...
Well, you could pick up with, let's say somebody on a board. Let's say I know you're serving on a certain board.
Right. Okay. So yeah, let's say we're talking about being specific here. Let's say you have a client that sits on the board. And maybe you do a lot of work with nonprofits, so it's a nonprofit board, which is really cool, right? And they may sit on other boards too, or maybe whatever the match is. So you want to go specific. So I would say, Brandon, I know you sit on the board for the Kidney Foundation. Picture those folks for a second. Anybody there you think should at least be aware of what we do? See, notice I'm not asking who I can help. That's not usually what I say, because they don't know whether you can help them or not usually. but they may know them well enough to know they should at least know about you. Maybe they've complained in the past, right? That's one way to do it. Also notice I said, just picture those folks for a second, because what we're trying to do is get them to picture a few folks in their mind's eye. It increases the chances. If I say, I know your former business partner, Joe, you guys left on good terms. He started his own business. Do you think you should know about what we do? Would you be okay with us working with him as well as, so it's very narrow is where we're headed with this. And you're usually going to get a much, much better result. Now, the other way you can do it is kind of categories of people you serve well. So if you have a target market, if you're going after medical practices or nonprofits or, real estate developers or whatever a vertical market might be for you, then you can use that as part of the ask and get them to think within that vertical market. Another way you can do it is what causes someone to change accounting firms? Well, it could be that they just had a bad experience and they're fed up. But quite often they outgrow their firm. And so sometimes that's it. Sometimes they're experiencing rapid growth and they were using someone who just, was good at what they did, but just didn't have quite the depth that maybe you can provide, right? So that's another, but bringing in the categories of rapid growth or experiencing challenges of a shrinking industry or whatever it might be. And those are those trigger points that people are going through that might have them want to take a look at you. So to summarize, narrow. Don't throw open the whole universe and say, who do you know? Because that usually doesn't work and you'll see it doesn't work and then you'll stop doing it. But just be curious about people and pay attention to people in their lives and just look for those opportunities that present themselves from time to time.
Which kind of circles back to our discussion about lunches and time spent with clients. You get to know what boards they serve on or what they're doing. So
Yep, that's it. The more you can get to know your clients, two things happen. The better you serve them, right? The more context you have about your clients, especially your business clients, the more you can serve them.
Right.
Because other things come into play. You could maybe you're going to get introduce them to another service provider of some sort in the community.
Right.
And you start to build an inventory of possibilities of people they may introduce you to. Down the road. They could be centers of influence or they could be actual clients. So that curiosity and getting to know your clients on a deeper level, it's good for the clients and it's good for you.
Yeah. When I first started doing sales work, a very experienced salesperson said, you need to memorize 10 questions to ask a potential client and just have that in your brain so that you can ask those questions, because I feel like asking questions is probably the most powerful way to get people talking and get the spotlight on them a little bit.
Yes. Can I add to that?
Sure.
Then asking the second question, right? It's in a social setting, you know how it goes, right? We may ask somebody a question, they'll start to talk, and then we're formulating our response and our experience and then we're off talking about ourselves again. But it's the second and the third question that really, then that's when you really learn. And it could be as simple as saying, tell me more, or tell me more about that. I've been thinking about selling my business. Oh, tell me more, right? And what are they going to do? They're going to tell you more. So if you're not particularly good at asking questions or the follow-up questions, just use tell me more. Some folks on this call are going to remember old Peter Falk Columbo, the bumbling detective. He used the word curious a lot. I'm curious. It's a great conversational word to help you learn more about that person's situation. So really listen to respond, listen to ask the follow-up question and peel the layers of the onion back a little bit. And you're going to learn more and they're going to appreciate you because you are interested in learning more.
Right. Well, let's talk about this value discussion. One of the things, that we try to promote, we have a workshop called Accounting Practice Academy, and we're very interested in having accountants provide more of this consultative type of value. And that's clients, they need more of that, and from most of the accountants that are in the profession.
Yes.
So I'm very curious about how you help conduct value discussions.
Yeah, so my value discussion is a little bit different than that, but I think we can blend the two together and let me give it a shot. So the first and foremost thing of what we call a value discussion is to make sure, and I mentioned it briefly before, that we're matching expectations. I mean, there's the first thing that'll kill a relationship, personal, business. Someone's got an expectation, they don't verbalize it, and then it goes unmet, right? An unexpressed, unmet expectation is a killer, right? I mean, it happens with my wife. She's got an expectation of what I'm going to do during the day or at a party or whatever. She doesn't tell me. She thinks I'm a mind reader. Sorry, Laura. And she knows it. So, but the same thing's in business, right? People have expectations. And so one thing you always want to do, if someone's moving firms, you always want to say, well, look, I don't want to talk negative about the firm you were with. I know you weren't happy, and I'm sorry about that. I am curious, what are your expectations moving forward, right? And what are some of your pet peeves? That's a kind of a soft, fun way to get them to express the negative, because you don't really want to get too much into that. But you do want to find if they have expectations that match what you can deliver, right? And so that's a trust building conversation to start off a possible new client relationship with. But moving forward, it would be, Brandon, we've been working together for a couple of years. I just want to take a time out and reflect just on the overall communication. First of all, is there any place where we're not living up to expectations, where we're falling short in any way? Because we really do need to know that if that's happening. Now, most of the time people can say, nope, you guys are great. We love it. They'll go right to the positive. But every now and then there may be something there, or maybe something that happened that you kind of already handled, but you just want to get that last bit of expression out so it takes all the charge off of it, right? That someone didn't get a phone call returned quickly or something. So you can't be afraid of this negative feedback. It's not going to happen much, but if it's there, you got to just get it up and out, right? Because if you don't, that stuff festers and then you lose clients and you didn't even know why you lost them. Then you pivot to the positive. What is working for you here? We'd love to obviously keep doing that for you and maybe do it for others. So would you mind, feed my ego for a minute here? We want to know a lot of different ways to express this, right? You bring your personality to it, and then you're going to hear what they like. And what that does is gets them in touch with the value. What I call it a value discussion. That it gets by speaking it out. They already have a sense of it. They wouldn't be your client here, but speaking it out helps a lot. And then you get it, and now you're at a moment where if you have a little bit of courage, you could at least promote the possibility of introductions, or you could downright ask. I'm glad we got to have. I'm glad. We love working with you as well. That everyone talks about you, and they always say, "Oh, we love." Brandon Poe, he's one of our best clients, right? So thank you. And, we're at a position where we have some availability to serve folks that fit a certain type of criteria like you do. You're an ideal client for us. That's a nice stroke, right? Can we chat about that a little bit? A couple ideas maybe I'd like to run by you of the types of people we do some good work for. Oh, okay. What do you have in mind? So you're only asking people who love you. Right.
Right.
No one's going to say, my life insurance agent does this. You're not doing this. That's not going to happen, because it's a total different strategy in how you're doing it and applying it. Or at least plant the seed. Glad you're happy. Hey, just so you know, we're never too busy to see if we can be a resource for other people you care about. To see. Those are the qualifying words. You're not guaranteeing you're going to serve those people. You're never, because they may not be a good match for you. You're never too busy to see if you can be a resource for people they care about. So that's kind of what the value discussion turns into, the possible ask.
I love that, because I think a lot of CPA firm owners might be surprised by what they hear, the positive. They may not know, the client really likes, like I've asked 10 clients and 7 have said they like this. Well, gosh, I need to double down on that. We need to do more of that, whatever it is.
So let me give you a story. This is an estate planning attorney who I was working with, and he thought that what the clients really valued in him was his incredible way of explaining how things worked. Explaining, trusts and explaining wills and the differences and all that sort of stuff, right? The whole thing. And I'm sure they valued that, don't get me wrong. But when he started doing these value discussions, that didn't come up. Doesn't mean it wasn't part of the equation, but it didn't. What they did talk about him was, first and foremost, George, you're just a great listener. I mean, I feel like when I talk to you, you're not thinking about the next question or your lunch. You're really paying attention, and I just appreciate that about you. Right? He started hearing things that he didn't realize his clients were noticing, and so of course, what it does is it makes him feel good, which is nothing wrong with that. Knows he's got a happy client. They're on the love list now, and then he accentuates that behavior, and he now it becomes consciously competent, so he can do it more and better moving forward. So that's what this value discussion is about. Is there a latent problem that needs to be addressed? It hasn't been expressed. Let's get that off the table, right? Because look, Brandon, you know this. I think everybody listening knows this. A relationship that's had a problem that's been handled well is a stronger relationship than one that's never had a problem, right? That's a true test of a solid relationship. And so we can't be afraid of that stuff. We almost got to go looking for it. And I think people think I'm nuts saying that, but we do. We can't be afraid, and we have to talk about that. So yeah. That's what this value expectations check is all about. Now, can you also use this to talk about other ways you bring value? Absolutely. And I believe you should. We've been serving you with this, and we've been serving you with this. And I want you to be aware of other things, other ways we're bringing value to many of our clients. Some may be relevant to you, some may be relevant to other people but can I share that with you a little bit? Sometimes you get pigeonholed, right? We all run the risk of getting pigeonholed in what we do. And so we always have to find ways to expand and talk about. Now, if you're a firm that's expanding the offerings of how you provide value to your clients, not just doing tax returns, let's say, or not tax returns and audits, there's other things, business consulting, right? Perhaps M&A consulting, expansion consulting, whatever it might look like. You want to frame that at the very beginning. Someone may come to you because they're just fed up with how the person's been handling their tax return. Okay, that's why they're coming to you. But you want to make sure at the very beginning of the relationship that whole offering is mentioned, at least in some form. Get to doing the return, get to why they came to you, but don't let them lose the fact that you do other things, so you don't get pigeonholed.
Yeah, that's good. Well, we've had a lot of. There's so many different places we could go with this conversation. Right? It is definitely, I see the art and the science, the nuance, which I would expect. You're talking about humans dealing with humans, which is always nuanced.
That's right.
You have a guide, and we'll share this in the show notes, the Exponential Growth Guide, and yes, people can download that. Go to the exponentialgrowthguide.com. You want to just kind of touch on some of the highlights of that?
Yes. So exponentialgrowthguide.com is a kind of it shows the integration of this whole idea of being referable and being proactive. And it's adding some of the content from my book, Radical Relevance, which is our value proposition and how we talk about our value, because that's related to all of this. And so it's a nice little overview. I think people will find it helpful of how the integration between being referable, being proactive, having a great value proposition comes together. So I think they'll find it's an easy read. It'll take you maybe 10 minutes, but probably stimulate a lot of ideas that you can bring back to your team.
Yeah. Well, we've touched on, I think, some of the bigger items. Is there anything else that you think is something that people need to hear today about referrals, that someone that really wants to drive business through referrals?
Yeah. We've kind of touched on, but I'm going to give you 3 quick things. Number 1, you got to be referable. And how do you know if you're referable? Unsolicited referrals, introductions, right? If everyone me, you, everyone listening, if we're not getting some unsolicited, if we're not getting some people coming to us, said, my friend George, my friend Laura recommend that I talk to you, then there's something missing, right? It may not be a lot, but that's the first place I always go. People who come to me for coaching and training, they say, oh, my clients love me, but I'm not getting any referrals. I said, none? Well, not many. I don't get any unsolicited. All right, let's talk about that my clients love me part again, right? So maybe they're loyal, they're satisfied, but they're not engaged. It's not that next level. So that's one thing. In my book, Radical Relevance, I have the 17 rules of radical relevance. And rule number 2 is give your clients a seat at the table. And what I mean by that is we've talked about half of that, which is this value discussion, checking in, making sure, breaking bread, all the things we've talked about. But the other is whenever you start to work on how you talk about your value, any kind of marketing pieces, anything, website, LinkedIn Pro, whatever it is, you probably have a few clients. Maybe they have a marketing mindset, whatever, but they love you and they're happy to help you. Don't ever put stuff out without talking to some of your clients. You can talk to colleagues, you can talk to your team, but they're not your clients, right? And what I've learned is that when you go to your clients, you hear things, expressions of how they think about your business that you would never hear. I'll give you one quick example. One of my clients, Michael Schmitz, out in San Mateo, California, said this to me. He says, Bill, when I talk to others, my colleagues in the industry, I tell them that Bill Cates makes asking for referrals as natural as breathing. I go, wow, I would never thought of saying that. That's kind of cool. Can I quote you? And I do quote him, because if I said it, it would be marketing hype. But if I quote my client who said it, now I'm just quoting. I'm just, telling this is what he said.
Right.
And so it's a little easier to use in that regard. So seat at the table, be super referable. And then I guess the final thing is don't be afraid to find a way talk to clients about this, whether you're promoting, whether you're asking, find someone on your team who could be good at this, who develops some relationship with your clients. And so maybe they can do it if you're not going to be the one who does it. But we miss so much opportunity by not exploring that with our clients.
Yeah. And I want to add one other thing, because we talked about it at the opening. A lot of CPAs are at or over capacity, and do something about that. If that's the case, do something about it, because you don't want to ignore your best clients and turn off what's already, you don't want to sour relationships because of that.
Yeah.
And so do something, fix it somehow, whatever you got to do, fix it.
Yep, absolutely. I know one firm that's hired a CEO, but chief experience officer. And their sole job is making sure that all employees, all the team, everyone has a great experience working where they're working. And then also all their clients are having a great experience working with the firm. So it is the experience that you create for your employees as well as your clients that creates that feeling of engagement and likability, and you keep good employees and they'll talk about you to others, et cetera. It's the experience. So
yeah, awesome.
Good.
Well, thank you so much. This has been a really lively, very interesting conversation, something that I'm personally very interested in. We get a lot of our business through referrals. One year we recorded that over 50% of our business came through referrals, and we're a transactional company. We sell companies, so we only get a client once typically. So this has been great. What's the best way for people to find out and learn more about you?
Sure. Referralcoach.com is our website, referralcoach.com. And if you want to look at some free resources that we have, just poke around, checklists, guides, go to referralcoach.com/resources. And that'll take you to a page. You can sign up for tips if you want. A lot of good tools there. You'll poke around and get into my world, and I'm happy to help any way I can.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Accountant's Flight Plan podcast. If you like what you heard today, please follow us so that you can get updates when new episodes are released, and share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. You can also follow Poe Group Advisors on social media. Please visit our website for more information at poegroupadvisors.com. perpetual.com.